Dear Krome Studios, my name is David, and I recently finished playing through Ty The Tasmanian Tiger 4. It's been 11 years since the release of the last game for this series, and because I loved playing the previous 3 games when I was younger, I wanted to let you know that I was left feeling very disappointed at what was given to the fans as a sequel. Originally, I was going to write a review formally explaining my thoughts about this game and letting you know how you could have made this game better. But after thinking about it for a while, I've decided against it. Instead, I'm going to be letting you know my thoughts about this game in a more casual manner because I care about the future for this series of games. So first off, I wanted to let you know that I do not think that this is a bad game at all. Even though I would have loved to have seen another 3D Ty game, I still thought that you adapted this game into a well put together 2D action-adventure experience that anybody can casually play. Almost everything seemed to have worked as intended, and I appreciate that you took the time to make sure that there were little bugs present in the release of this game. I also appreciate that you made sure the game looked as visually pleasing as possible, which helped the transition to 2D graphics much smoother for me. I love that you made the game look like it was beautifully drawn artwork that people can play, and I also liked that you made the different levels feel like they had more depth by adding in things like multiple layers of backgrounds and foregrounds. I also liked the small things too, such as making sure the music sounded as great as the previous games, and even the surprising amount of variety in enemies that showed up the more I played the game. And even though the story aspect has never been a strong suit in the previous games, I appreciate that you made the story in this game interesting enough to keep me playing all the way to the end. Unfortunately, there are also many things that I did not like about this game that kept me from truly praising this as something that all Ty the Tasmanian Tiger fans should play right away. Mainly, I felt like this game had little sense of uniqueness and progression from the last few games, given that this is titled as a 4th game in the series. For example, the game is set in a time where Ty and Bush Rescue are still together and taking care of problems that pop up around the Outback. One of the big problems I had with the game was that even though I loved playing as Ty, I felt like there was a missed opportunity to make the game feel different and be more fun by not including a feature where you could play as other characters. And yes, I know that I can buy a costume to feel like I'm playing as somebody else, but in the end, that just felt hollow to me since I'm still controlling the character like I'm playing as Ty, only with a different skin on. I would have loved to have seen the other members of Bush Rescue having their own specialized minigames and see how they contribute to keeping the Outback safe. It just felt weird to see that Ty is pretty much the only one who can get things done when anything goes wrong. I also think this suggestion could have improved the variety of side missions and minigames throughout the game, because I felt like a lot of them were pretty much the same thing done over and over again. Aside from a couple of exceptions, most of the side missions were simply fetch quests, escort missions, and a variety of timed races. And while I don't mind playing those types of missions in small doses, when those types of missions are spread throughout a game that could take more than 4 hours to complete, those types of missions started feeling more like a chore to complete after a while. Instead, I wanted more missions like when Ty was getting chased down by a boulder, because that was exciting and fun to experience. I also felt like the game relied too much on nostalgia from previous games and not enough on missions that were creative and made this game have its own identity. Now don't get me wrong, I love nostalgia, but a game could only rely on that for so long before players get bored of it. Another thing that I would have loved to have seen in this game are the weapons having more creative uses in combat and their interaction with different types of environment. As it stands, the enemies in this game are very easy to take down, and so most of the boomerangs that I purchased felt useless as soon as I knew which ones were the most powerful to use. I also felt like many of the boomerangs that I acquired through story progression became boring to use in combat because they weren't different enough from each other to make me want to use any specific one. It would have been nice to have seen the less powerful boomerangs have unique status effects when players use them against enemies in order to make the combat feel more interesting and give players a good reason to use them more. I also thought the decision to make most of the boomerangs purchasable from the start was not the best way to go either, because I felt like that should have been reserved to make the player feel like they truly earned them. Sure, some of the boomerangs should be made purchasable, but I would have liked to have seen the more powerful boomerangs be earned through other means, such as beating minigame challenges or finding certain collectibles. Speaking of such, adding in-game rewards for the minigames and collectibles would have made them much more fun to play and added more incentive for players to keep playing them. I wish these rewards were things like concept art, developmental journal videos, items that could help ease playing a certain part of the game, or anything to let the fans know that they are appreciated for continuing to play the game. In conclusion, I felt like this game was missing its own unique identity, and there were so many missed opportunities to either take this franchise in a more interesting direction or make it even better than it was before. I also get that I'm not a game developer, and I may not know what exactly goes on behind the scenes, and that there may have been some hurdles in the development of this game to make it what it is today. But what I mainly want to get across is that I'm being critical because I know that you can do better, and seeing the little amount of innovation in the sequel was a total letdown for me as a fan. So if you're going to make another sequel for Ty The Tasmanian Tiger, I would love to see you go outside of your comfort zone and consider listening to some of my suggestions for improvement in the future. Until then, I will continue to recommend to every one of my peers who are interested in this series to start from the first game, which is where I personally fell in love with the world of Ty The Tasmanian Tiger. Sincerely, DavidHayderGamer.